Do you still like being called Madders?
You know, Dexter, I don't mind. You know, look, there was a time where I sort of like thought, well, that's like the old alter ego. I've been called Madders since I was probably about 4.
Because when I saw the Tony DeVee film documentary, a lot of people you thought you weren't with us anymore. Is that?
Yeah.
Wow.
I will confess, Dexter, now that I played my part in that, and I said to my mate, nip this in the bud, will you? Because I don't need it. Just stick a rumour out there that I'm dead. From 1996 to 2003, Sundissential had signed up 100,000 members.
100,000 members, Sundissential.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
Cocaine powder stopped working. Me and my addict brain thought, right, okay, well, we need to upgrade here if you can see the fingers. Because I ended up then having a nearly 20-year battle with crack cocaine. 5,000 people turned up, Dexter, for a club that with a legal capacity of 1,900. 51 years of age. I mean, I landed back at the doors of Livingston House on the 13th of April 2017, Dexter, in the same clothes, the same bin bag and the same hold-all.
Episode 50, we got there. Thank you so much. We have done an episode every single week for 50 weeks. I never thought I'd be able to fit this in between life and work. And I just want to say thank you so much for everybody who's given me any kind comments, any subscribers, anything that has just got me up out of bed early in the morning or in the middle of the night to get these edits done. It's been brutal at times. However, today is not about subscribers. It's not about viewers. It's not about me, a channel. It's about recovery. And I want to dedicate this episode to people who are in recovery, people suffering from any sort of addiction, alcoholism, drug addiction, gambling, whatever. It can be anything. And I want to just say there is help out there and there is hope out there. I'm a recovering alcoholic. The person I'm about to speak to was deep in the world of addiction for over 20 years and has now come out the other side and is 9 years clean. And I couldn't think of a better guest to have on to celebrate my 50th episode. So I'm not going to hang around anymore. I'm going to pass this over to this fantastic gentleman who has now dedicated his life to helping others. Madders, we've finally got there.
Yeah, I'm not technical, Dexter. No. And a pleasure to see you, sir. How are you?
A pleasure to see you as well. We've been planning this for a little bit, haven't we? And,
yeah, I'm just going to compliment you on your wallpaper, poster, frame stuff, backdrop. Although it's a smart wallpaper, it looks as though I'm sitting in a, Indian takeaway somewhere in Birmingham. But
don't worry, this is all for the show. We've been chatting for a little while now.
Yeah.
And first of all, for anybody who's watching this, we're doing this on a different recording platform today because Madders' internet was playing up a little. So the quality may be a little bit different, but the quality of the interview will not be different. And excitingly, we're going to break this into 2 podcasts, aren't we? We're going to do one about your, should we say, your Madders life and your post Madders life.
Yeah.
Now, can I ask you a question to get things off? Do you still like being called Madders?
Dexter, I don't mind. Look, there was a time where I sort of like thought, well, that's like the old alter ego. But when I've done some media work, since getting clean and, going into recovery and working in that profession, etc. And, people would see Paul Madan. Well, who the bloody hell's he? I was never known. I've been called Madders since I was probably about 4. It was a nickname given to me because of my surname, Madan. Madders. There you go. There's the link. So I don't mind, Dexter. And obviously, people who, enjoyed the trials and tribulations of the rave scene, the dance music scene, the clubbing scene. They will only know me as Madders. Paul Madan could be, next door's cat for all they care, But yeah, I don't mind. Madders is fine.
Isn't it it's quite suitable though, isn't it?
Well, I think, yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I think it was the surname, the nickname, led to the behaviours, I suppose. So, yeah, I get that, Dexter. I never thought about it that way.
I thought it was because it was just like a nickname of yours because of your crazy Sundissential parties, and obviously you did other parties as well. And I thought it was from that, and I didn't know that your name was Paul Madan until I started doing my research and trying to get hold of you, and I found you in the first in doing an online talk for recovery talk on YouTube, and I was like, oh my word, he's still with us,
alive.
He's still alive. Because when I saw the Tony DeVee film documentary, a lot of people you thought you weren't with us anymore. Is that wow?
Yeah.
How must that make you feel?
Well, I think after the sort of early to mid 2000s, Dexter getting the sack from my own business, sort of the end of Sundissential per se, my life was already had spiraled out of control, but it just went into overdrive at that point, and I ended up, in trouble with authority. In fact, I just ended up in trouble, full stop. Addiction is just, it's not a healthy pastime. No. And, I found myself doing geographicals. I lived in Worcestershire for 7 years, and I think it was around that time that on Dexter, even to this very day, my version of social media is WhatsApp. I don't use it. Quite frankly, I'm not interested in the amazing place where I work, the Wellbore Clinic. Obviously, I like to tune into what's happening on our socials, if that makes sense. But that's not my job there. We have a lovely lady called Gracie Fields, I call her. She's only young, but Gracie Fields, well, she was a World War II British soldiers superstar, but she does all that. But so no, I think there'd been rumours, and a friend of mine rang me and said, look, people are asking about what's happened to Madders and all this, and I thought, well, this is just, quite frankly, I thought it was just bullshit, really. I think it was just an excuse just to do a bit of, gossip mongering, etc. So I said to my one mate, Justin, I said, look, just do me a favour. I don't need this. I really don't. I mean, at the time, when all this was happening, I was barely clean. I was still sort of in sober living at that point. I was coming to terms with my life again, and the last thing I needed, Dexter, was, what's happened to Madders. Well, Madders has been on a journey to hell and back, and he's trying to get well. I will confess, Dexter, now that I played my part in that, and I said to my mate, nip this in the bud, will you? Because I don't need it. Just stick a rumour out there that I'm dead. Yeah, I mean, I suppose really it's a bit naughty, really. I'm playing, a bit like Lord Lucan, that sort of, character who, fake their own death, whatever. But I didn't mean it like that at all, Dexter. I just didn't want that all to be rehashed. There was great success, huge success with Sundissential. It became a Superclub, and I'm proud of that. And I'm sure Danny, the other half of Sundissential, I mean, I'm sure he is too. He lives in Australia now. But, obviously there's a lot of pain there, and I just didn't want it all being rehashed out again.
Did you say you were early into recovery then.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was in early recovery, I didn't know where my head was at, and
No, mate.
mine was
Yeah.
alcoholism. Yours was a mixture of a few things, I believe.
Yeah, drug addiction and alcoholism.
Yeah. I never had the drug side of it, thank God. But alcohol, yeah. Whew. But I wasn't in a fit state to do anything the first year. And this is why it always makes me very wary when I see people going public that online that they've been sober for like 3 months, 6 months, 9 months.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, don't do that. Just keep it to
No.
yourself, because especially if you're in the limelight,
Yeah.
if you're in the hot seat, if you're a public figure, if you fall off that wagon, you've made a right arsehole of yourself in front of everyone. Well, that's what you're going to think, and it's going to make you even harder to get dry again.
Yeah.
And I always tell that to people, please don't be too, if you've been sober for years, I mean, you're 9 years now.
Yeah, coming up 9 years now.
Congratulations. Me too.
Yeah,
How
brilliant.
about that?
Well done, Dex.
And
Yeah,
congratulations
great
to
stuff.
yourself.
And
as
you look
well.
great, yeah, it just shows,
Yeah, I'm a lot younger than you though. So
Yeah.
luckily I managed to clean myself up, and I was always going to the gym as well all throughout my recovery and
Yeah.
looking after myself. So I was a kind of quite fortunate. But going back to what we were just saying about people being public about sobriety, I think that can be dangerous in your early days, because if you fall, how many times
Yeah.
did you fall off the wagon when you were?
Oh, I lost count, but I mean, I did. I mean, I went to treatment twice, Dexter. I think, and I'm sure whether it's in this program or the next episode, but I'll be talking about that more in depth. But the first time I tried to get clean was I was put on gardening leave in 2000 by Danny. My life. And I wasn't using that, I'd crept into the dark side of drug use, with crack cocaine and heroin, and although not a lot of opiate use at that point, I was quite scared of it really, which was strange. But, I ended up going off, stopped, I'll just be honest if I can. I mean, cocaine
Please.
powder stopped working. I was doing that much of it. It just stopped working.
It does.
Tolerance went So me and my addict brain thought, right, okay, well, we need to upgrade here if you can see the fingers. And I don't mean that, because I ended up then having a nearly 20-year battle with crack cocaine. So that substance alone was my nemesis. And although I did use opiates and sort of benzo, like diazepam type things, and but then because I had to have a come down mechanism from smoking that stuff, and so obviously I'd mix a mixture of opiates, benzodiazepines, and that's when the alcohol kicked in. So I tried to get clean in 2000, and that's when I stopped using drugs. And for a short period, I'd been referred to the Birmingham Drug Action Team, BDAT as it was called there then. And the mad thing is, Dexter, we employed not directly BDAT, but we had volunteers who were. We had a drug and alcohol team, at Sundissential's events, because things in those early noughties, late 90s, early noughties, were just going absolutely ballistic.
Yeah.
Ballistically stupid. And I don't mean ballistic, oh, wow, ketamine, GHB, it was all coming out. MCAT, it was just one thing after another, and we had 4 deaths at Sundissential back in 2000, Dexter, which was so highly publicised.
1 year.
Oh. Yeah, 2 in Birmingham and 2 in Leeds, and all 4 in 6 months. So between January of 2000 to July of 2000, the beginning of July, we had 4 deaths, and yet my own personal battles were I was doing my best to keep them under wraps, as you do, with addiction, hiding away in my own flat, using and whatnot. But so I tried to get clean 26 years ago, and finally got clean and sober in 2017, at the age of 51. And, I know in recovery we're not supposed to have regrets, but I do regret that I had chances, even when I wasn't in Clubland, when I've gone back into Civvy Street, that I had chances to sort my life out. But, the disease of addiction's cunning, it's baffling, it's extremely powerful, and it's insidious, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, so it took 2 bouts of treatment from 2015. Here's one for you, Dexter, although I am proud of this, really. So from the 6th of June, 2015, which is, for those, who love their histories, the anniversary date of D-Day from the Second World War. So that was my D-Day, and I went into a wonderful place in Birmingham, which was then a charity called Livingston House.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Dexter, I stayed there for 1 whole year.
Wow.
Okay, but I still had my own ideas on addiction. I still had my own ideas on what I wanted to do. I was brutally dishonest, I was closed-minded, and I was not willing. Now, it doesn't matter, I could have stayed there for 2 years.
Yeah.
I then went back to Worcester on the 6th of June 2016, okay, which was a glorious summer. It was the year of the European Union referendum, so it was all happening in the UK at the time. Went back to Worcester, and I'll tell you now, within 3 weeks, Dexter, I was back on the crack, the smack, and the frosty jack.
Mm.
And then I, would clean up quickly. I was going to meetings. I would clean up and get another month or 2 under my belt. Right, okay, get a grip of it. Blah 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 blah. But anyway, even though I got a new job and tried to get that normality going, but no job has ever kept me clean and sober. Sundissential and my the only job I've ever, 2 jobs I've ever held, 3 jobs where I have been on my game, was the family business from 1984 to 20, but come the late 80s, early 90s anyway, I was banging to the dance music scene anyway. But I was young, I performed well. And the only 2 jobs I've ever held clean and sober was 7 amazing years at Livingston House.
Mm-hmm.
And the last 2 years of where I work now, which is the amazing and wonderful, the Wellborn Clinic in Leafy, Kenilworth, in Warwickshire, sort of just about 10 miles out of Coventry, sort of near Warwick, Leamington Spa, Stratford, Solihull. So it's a wonderful location, and I love my job there. So yeah, it's been a journey, but yeah, I mean, on the back of it, getting the gift of desperation, and just 51 years of age. I mean, I landed back at the doors of Livingston House on the 13th of April, 2017, Dexter, in the same clothes, the same bin bag, and the same holdall.
Yeah.
And it was, yeah.
So we'll go a lot into depth about the recovery side of things in part 2. Now, I want to know as well, and I'm sure a lot of people want to know, is how did you get into the music industry? How did that? Because I've never heard the story about how Sundissential was born. if you had other things going on before. I think I spoke to Lisa Lashes not too long ago.
Yeah.
And she mentioned the first time that she met you on a boat party.
Yeah.
And
Good.
yeah. And I think she mentioned something else about some other events that you were doing then. So how did you fall into you did fall into this world, yeah? Like us all.
Yeah. We go. I've literally fell into it. So no. Do you know what, Dexter? In the early 90s, from about 1992, really, there was an explosion in the Birmingham area scene, Birmingham, Wolverhampton, particularly. Some stuff in Coventry, of course, the clips and whatnot. But Birmingham, it was all about London and sort of Manchester, the Cream, Liverpool, the usual places. But I am born and bred Brummie, and I'm proud to be a Brummie. And Birmingham never really sort of had anything from sort of 88 to sort of like, there were, there was the Rag Market and various other bits and bobs that took place, which were highly successful. I mean, it's been a long time now, Dexter. I'm 60, so if anyone does tune in, I should have remembered an event. Well, forgive me, because it's called the passing of time, and probably the consequences of what I was up to back then, But
We chatted about this the other day, didn't we?
yeah,
That the brain
yeah.
cells have kind of
Oh,
not
yeah,
what
yeah,
they
yeah,
used to
yeah,
be.
yeah, yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Because if you remember back in the early 90s, they're all over the front page of the newspapers. Ecstasy will have long-term effects. Do you
oh
remember?
God,
It said,
yeah,
of course, they were drilling that into us as kids.
yeah.
And I kind of think a little bit is true. With the memory,
It's
it's
absolutely true, Dexter, and it's great what you've said there, because it's not just the physical aspects of
yeah,
using sort of speed and ecstasy from those days. For me, they were the gateway drugs to hell. Okay,
yeah,
I didn't go into treatment in 2015 for speed and ecstasy. Far from it.
mm,
The drugs I was using at the end were not the drugs I was using at the beginning.
mm.
It's each substance is a gateway to another, to another, to another. So it's not, excuse me, it's not just the physical aspects of these type of drugs; it's the mental health aspects as well. And soon as the rave scene kicked off anyway in the late 80s, remember, Dexter, it opened up substance misuse to the masses.
And yeah, and those generations hit it hard as well.
Yeah,
Really,
you
really
know,
hard compared to
absolutely.
today,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
Yeah. I mean, I would go out with my friends, and I'll come back to my dear, because they are my best friends, and I'm so honoured to have them back in my life. But I'll come to that another bit. So the group of us that decided to go down that sort of ravey path, and let's have a look at this, the beer went down and the pills went in.
Mm.
But I didn't realise that what took place back then, would take, touching, heading towards 30 years. If I look at from the time I ever took a Class A drug, which was in
Do you remember your
1988,
first
that was
pill? Do you remember your
no,
first pill?
it was well,
I
no,
can.
it was acid and speed in Tenerife in 1988.
You were saying this,
But
yeah. And then
yeah,
he moved on.
then come the early 90s,
Yeah.
yeah, off we go. So yeah, so I mean, to be honest with you, Dexter, I have, on my journey in recovery, I have met so many people, some of them very well known indeed, and I'm not naming names. I
No,
don't want
we
to be
don't.
sued.
We don't.
But that succumb to this killer illness called addiction. Okay, and apart from those poor souls who died at Sundissential events, that was non-addiction related. But I have been informed across the piece of people who I have met on my journey in and out of addiction, who have succumbed to the disease, who have died. So it opened up it opened. There was always been a drug scene all over the world at any time in history, but the late 80s in the UK, Ireland, Europe, USA, Australia, wherever, it opened up something that me and you both know was known as the chemical generation, and I am, and obviously, part of that generation, and so
The whole scene, the scene was designed
yeah,
around it. The
of
music,
course it was.
the music was designed for it. I mean, I
course.
always say to people when they listen to like a hard house or a trance tune or even a techno tune or whatever, what's a build up for? A build up, I'm pretty sure, was created for when you come up on an E.
Yeah.
Is it because you would rush on it,
Yeah.
and it was kind of, so it was kind of purposely built around that. So when did you start putting on your first events?
Well, it's funny because I was very happy in my job with the family business in sales in Birmingham. I would travel a lot, mostly around sort of the West Midlands, the Western counties, Herefordshire, Worcestershire, and all across Wales. And I was young, and it was a great job, and it was my family. My mum and dad were the bosses, and my sister joined the business later on down the line with an insurance business. And we were successful, hard work, but we did it together, and I'm very proud of that. It is a highlight of my life, those days. But the other half of Sundissential, Danny, he became a very close friend, and to me and my pals that I moved on to, because it was, I was constantly, not constantly, but going. People fall by the wayside, they pack it in, you move on to another crowd. But Danny said to me the one day in about 1995, I think, why don't we do something of our own? And if I'm honest, Dexter, I wasn't really interested at first.
Always
I
the
played
way.
lip service, no, because I was having such a good time. In and out of the events in and around, wherever, mostly, I mean, some great clubs, Money Pennies, Fun, Wobble, again, there's so many there was one place by the old ATV studios, or ITV as they call now, and I can't remember that name. There were some great. I mean, when the Q Club opened, I mean, it was a phenomenal. It was just so Birmingham was having it off, and then there would be like the Marco Polo bar, which was just a bar in the gay village in Chinatown, in that side of town, and it opened at like 6 or 7 in the morning, and but where it was located, and this is where the inspiration for Sundissential came from. There was another club as well called Tintin's, which was just phenomenal. I mean, these are places where like Andy Farley and Paul Kershaw, and and I would meet these guys. So that was, I suppose, Tintin's at the time was like Birmingham's equivalent to Trade, really. Marco Polo bar, though, was phenomenal, because what it did, Dexter, for Birmingham and the sort of West Midlands as a whole, it was that Tintin's and the Marco Polo bar were where gay and straight clubbers would mix in a very conducive environment. The music was just mind-blowing, and I was quite taken back. I mean, I'll say, I don't know if using the word gays is the right, but I'll just, I'm 60, but the gay lads would come in and the girls would come in and they would dance. Like, wow, you can, they would strut their stuff, and the atmosphere, it was just electric. People were mixing. There was no homophobia or any form of. It was, and it was people, Dexter, would stay in on a Friday and a Saturday to get ready to go to, say, the Marco Polo bar on the Sunday morning. And but at the time, Money Pennies, Fun, Wobble, Tintins, the Marco Polo bar, the West End bar was another, and that was hilarious, that place. Ask Lisa Lashes about the West End bar. She'll probably cringe when she hears it. Great places, everyone knew each other. And it was, we're not talking pockets of people, we're talking masses of people, like-minded, happy, go lucky party people. And I was quite happy in that camp, So when Danny mentioned about why don't we do something of our own, we came up with an idea of a coach trip to a place in London. Again, can't remember. I think Seb Fontaine was resident at the time. I think it may have been his night. I just can't remember. So we put these black and white photocopy paper flyers out round the town. We took some deposits, and I wasn't interested. I really wasn't interested. So when push came to shove, we had to cancel it and give everyone the money back. So, failure from day one. And but then me and Danny, we met some guy, again, in Tintins. He was from Burton-on-Trent, and he owned a nightclub. Burton-on-Trent from Birmingham was about 25, 30 miles straight up the A38, 10 miles south of Derby. So you're in the East Midlands now, and he had this nightclub, and he just, the guy knew that, that me and Danny had connections, because, we were always out,
networking constantly,
naturally. Not professionally,
just but
more,
organically.
Well, in my case, I'm just going at them, and probably, and Danny doing the same, but, and so he said, this chap, he said, look, do you want to come and have a look? So, so we sort of did, and, and then something switched in me, and, actually standing in a licensed premises in Staffordshire, I mean, we created an event called Dust, had a flyer out with the word dust, but like with little angels as making up the word. So read into that what you will, probably wasn't very politically correct then.
No, a lot of the flyers back then weren't.
Angel dust, but
yeah.
And through connection, I mean, we had Tony DeVito for the first night, and it was absolutely chocker,
That's
and
insane.
it's like, wow, know. But, again, the deal was wrong. We're two out-of-towners. We spent all the money and came out with peanuts, really. I mean, it was all new, and it was all a learning curve, but for some reason, and much to Danny's annoyance, I kept wanting to have a crack at this Burton-on-Trent. We did another nightclub, that failed miserably, and then Danny was very pally with Dan Prince from Mixmag, and they both rang me the one day and started questioning me, about, well, tell us about what was happening on Sundays. And at the time, Dexter, there was nothing happening.
Yeah.
Marco Polos wasn't happening. It had gone back. Yes, they were all-nighters, but, unless you were going round to someone's house or, sitting in a park, gurning at pigeons, and, there was just nothing happening. And they suggested to me, do you think we could pull off another Sunday? And I said, well, yeah, we can. It just depends on how we do it. And so we started to look at options. And, when you've got Mixmag behind this, not directly the magazine, but Dan Prince himself, I mean, he's a very, very powerful man in the music industry, even to this very day. still doing out in Ibiza, etc., DMC and World Mixing Championship. So everything's still going on. So this was something that we were aiming to be bigger than just, crawling into some dark
proper business.
Proper business.
Yeah.
But, it was becoming an obsession. So I can, my addictive behaviour has gone back to, I think, when childhood, because once I get my teeth into something, Dexter, I don't let go, as you know, and I know, obsession, compulsion,
Yeah.
So we ended up speaking to the Rank organisation at the time.
They owned a huge number of nightclubs.
Massive,
didn't they?
huge amount.
If people aren't aware, they're a big corporation, weren't they? Who had nightclubs all over the UK and they're American as well, weren't they?
I think old J. Arthur. It all came from the Rank organisation, the films. Things like the Italian Job. They're all
wow.
Because I know that we haven't got PG on this interview. I mean, J. Arthur Rank became Cockney rhyming slang for having a wank, having a J. Arthur.
Yeah.
So we were having a J. Arthur. We went to see the Pulse nightclub in just at the very top of the gay village. So again, that was good fortune. And they said, we like your ideas, but we need to look at licensing. And at the time, I'm sure in London, I know in London, there were always going to be exceptions to the rule in the capital city. But, anything north of Watford, you hadn't got a chance of getting a license with anything. You were not going clubbing on a Sunday lunchtime. End of.
Okay.
But we looked into it through the club's licensing solicitors, and they said, well, you can do it, and but you've got to run a tight ship membership, and the rules were formulated, and we started to look at booking DJs and stuff like that, and but the most amazing thing, because a lot of people say to me, well, what a great name, Sundissential, you fair play for that one, Madders. And so it weren't me that made it up, it was my mum.
I've heard this.
Yeah.
Tell me the story.
Amazing. I mean, we were looking at a name for this Sunday thing, and it was either Ice Cream Sundays. I mean, fucking hell. I mean, that weren't going to take off, excuse the French. But, I was at work in the family firm and just had some lunch, and I was at my desk. My mum was sitting at her desk, and I'm doodling. I'm trying to come up with, names. Dan Prince is looking for names. Kirky's looking, Danny's looking for names. I'm looking. And I probably overstepped my lunch break time, and my mum turned around and said, are you going to do any bleeding work today, or are you just going to sit there scribbling? So, yeah, all right, Mum, yeah, no worries. She said, listen, Paul. She never called me Madders. I was always Paul, She said, look, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah, of course, Mum, She said, what's this Sunday club you're looking at? What's so essential about it being on a Sunday? I went, you what? I said, Mum, say that again. She said, yeah. What's so essential about it being on a bloody Sunday? So I've wrote the word essential down, wrote the word Sunday down, put Sunday in front of essential, Sunday essential. So it still looked too much of a mouthful. Crossed out the AY, put an I there, took the E off essential, and there it was, Sundissential. Bang,
perfect.
Boom.
You knew straight away, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So mobile phones were like house bricks at the time.
I remember.
So I rang the guys and said, get a pen and paper. Get a pen and paper, write this down. And they've both written it down, and they've gone, wow.
You just know.
Boom.
Yeah.
Well done, Manners, well done. Yeah. So thanks to my mum, who's nearly 91, bless her, Pam. Yeah, it was my mum who made it up. All I did was put two and two together, and there it was.
You always remember. I remember when we've thought up of some names, and you're looking for some magic, aren't you? And
Yeah.
then you just know straight away when you hit it, the nail on the head. Like if you think about some of these other big brand names, God's Kitchen,
Yeah.
Gate Crasher,
Yeah.
Sundissential,
Yeah.
Strawberry Sundays, Sunny Side Up.
Yeah.
It's just perfect for what they were doing because it actually says what they were doing as well. And I think a brand name that encompasses actually what the party's about, like you can call it something like high energy or octane, but yeah, that's cool. But what's it about? But Sundissential, it's an essential thing to do on a Sunday.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
brilliant. Well done, Mum.
Yeah, well done, Mum. I mean, and it's like the lads, Ben and Barry, who founded Good Grief in Manchester in the sort of mid to late 90s. Good Grief, well, I mean, if you spell it in, English, you don't, well, good grief. But the way they did it, they kept the word good, obviously, and then crossed out the I off grief, put another E in there,
Yep.
put a logo next to it, and bang, they
Brilliant,
were
brilliant.
up and running. So yeah, but it really is difficult when you're trying to
It just comes to
create something that's got that sort of, but people, and then they sort of, it became Sunny D, Sunnies, Sundis. Sunny D was massive, especially Leeds. They would all, I'm going to Sunny D North this weekend,
Yeah.
ladders.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
see
yeah.
you up there. And yeah, it was amazing. But yeah, nice one, Mum. Because a lot of it, isn't it, Dexter? With rave promoters, dance music promoters, a lot of it is luck.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
You can pitch anything and sow a bloody fortune at anything, but if you don't cop the imagination,
You have to have that element of luck.
as you
It's an
say, God's Kitchen.
equation.
Great. One club in Birmingham, Fun. I mean, 3 simple letters, and yet it was massive at the Steering Wheel Club.
Exactly.
Wobble.
Well, yeah.
Because it had a wobbly dance floor. Again, they are quirky things. They are catchy things. Excuse me, that people they copped onto, and I mean, I've got to be politically correct now because I mean, Moneypenny's was famous for its glamour. Obviously, attracted a lot of
course, yeah.
very like the glamorous people, particularly the ladies. So the street names for Moneypenny's were all sorts, but I'm not going into that because I will get into trouble. But yeah, I mean, great brands.
When you did your first Sundissential, what were your licensing hours?
Well, I mean,
When it
when
started?
it's ridiculous. It was ever so funny. It was like 12 midday till 7 p.m.
So that was kind of you. We had this discussion the other day. So you were like similar to the Sunny Side Up that was going on.
I think so. I mean,
you were like the Midlands version of that.
Yeah.
That was I can't remember. The grey matter's gone again, but I remember it was like midday-ish, maybe 10 in the morning through till the evening, and then we used to go to 4-on-4 club to the morning on Monday, which was that's how crazy it used to be back then, through to Monday. So you were just basically afternoons till 7. Yeah.
Effectively. But the the first event, 800 people turned up, so it started to membership, because obviously we had to do a lot of admin. It was like we had collection points for memberships all over Birmingham and the Black Country. We would the guys at the club staff would help process, and we had this great famous membership card.
I will flash up a photo now. If people aren't aware of what you're talking about, is that one of your license requirements was to be a members club. Is that correct? Right.
Yeah.
So everyone had to sign up as a member.
Yeah.
How did they do it, and how much was it? This is going to be funny.
Well, initially the membership for a long time was free.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just getting, I mean, at the point of my leaving, well, dismissal, if you wish, from 1996 to 2003, Sundissential had signed up 100,000 members.
100,000 members, Sundissential.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, they were pouring out. I mean, the franking machine, and the postage and just bloody everything, Dexter. We were just swallowed by envelopes. I'd have nightmare about being eaten alive by a bloody envelope with a plastic card in it. But the thing is, though, even when we moved on to a Saturday night and became a little bit more accessible, you didn't need to be a member then, but we kept it going because people wanted to be part of something they could call their own. Okay? It was a members club. It was run by them, for them. I remember going on the mic. I mean, I used to enjoy it, having introducing DJs and having a crack with the people there. And
How the fuck about that? I should have done this fucking months ago. Okay? I'm just going to do a little test. Oh, we've got our atmosphere back. Let me fucking hear you. Come on! Australia, raised in Castle Bromwich, Birmingham, looks like Count Dracula. It still smells like Count Dracula, but he is the undisputed king of World Hard House today. He is the one and only Randy Andy Farley.
That became sort of, a thing that, attracted, part of the brand setup, really. And I remember one day, and we were fairly steady. I mean, I wouldn't exactly say we were making profit, but, it wasn't about that. We're cutting the brand's teeth, and, a lot of people would say, hey, Madders, this is great here, but, what am I going to do after, and I'm thinking, well, maybe we tweak this. And I remember going on the mic, and because they're members, and again, there's a few hundred people out in front of them, I said, look, guys, we got, a lot of you are asking about the opening time. I said, look, and me and Danny and Dan Prince had spoken. I said, look, we should make this a little bit more, appealable, if there's such a word. I said, why don't we do 2 till 10:30? So we ran it past the club management, and they said, yeah. It served them well because, again, fully licensed.
Yeah.
I can't exactly say how much alcohol was consumed, but didn't seem to faze them. And I put it out to the members on like a show of hands, just like a trade union meeting. Who votes to strike?
Yeah.
And when I said, right, okay, guys, do you want to stay the same? These are the two options: 12 till 7, or 2 till 10:30 p.m. Yeah, So we changed, and it drove the numbers up a bit more.
Wow.
And yeah, we were creating something that ultimately turned very special. I remember we did the New Year's Eve in 1996, and it was, and I can't get my breath. I mean, Dexter, a lot of the cost of any event back then, not naming names, but DJs, their prices were going up and up and up and up and up as their market value was going up and up. And I get that. I get it. So you know, I remember in 1996, remember, it's 30 years ago, right? £42.50 a ticket. And 2,000 people bought tickets. That's how rich the scene was in Birmingham. You know, God's Kitchen had started, you know.
42 quid. Wow.
Yeah. But we always had the quirky little things like, you know, part one, part two, and this, that, and other. But the most phenomenal thing that took place for me personally as well was when we rolled into 1997. Again, you know, the New Year's Eve was outstanding. You know, we were starting now to get this, you know, this recognition, I think is the right word, as well as reputation. But we did the Easter bank holiday in 1997. And what we'd done, we, again, using the licensing rules at the time and guidance from the club, we did, because we could do 12 p.m. till 10 p.m. 10 hours. Wow. On a Sunday. Now, because of our great eclectic mixture of gay and straight clubbers, because of where we were and that vibe we tried to create that had already been proven to work in Birmingham, Marco Polo Bar, Tintin's, etc., etc. Right, so here we are now at the top of the gay village. We've got a 10-hour license, and all of a sudden we had this look that if we did this event for that amount of time, we're going to look like an Ibiza attraction, if that makes sense. Great venue, great sound system, great crowd, amazing residents, and again, you know, Lisa Lashes, Andy Farley, Nick Rafferty, Paul Kershaw, Fergie. So we've got the license to do 10 hours, and the lineup was just mammoth. You know, when you got 10 hours to play with, you know, so like Tony DeVee, Tall Paul, you know, Judge Jules, Sonic. I mean, it was all the A-listers of the time, plus our residents, you know, and it was marketed, you know, I was famous for me little quirky, so 10-hour glitzathon, you know, I mean, you know, you probably wouldn't get away with it now, but anyway, so we've put the material out there and it's in Mixmag and the posters are out and the flyers are everywhere and this, that and t'other. But the one fatal mistake we made, and you'll love this, Dex, my home BT landline, you know, the old style with an answering machine became the hotline, you know.
Oh, no.
So, and I was famous for my messages. They're a bit rude, but they people would like ring the phone and say, let's listen to Maddie's message of the week, you know, and it'd be all sorts of shit, you know. But anyway, the mistake was we didn't put tickets out. You know, we're still a new brand. We're not even 12 months old. In fact, we're barely 6-7 months old, if that. No, about 8-9 months. So anyway, as Easter 97 approached, my phone was getting busier. Fortunately, BT had put a volume button on the damn things. So at night time, I could turn the volume down. And all I could hear, Dexter, for about a month before this event was click, 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 click. So that was the message finishing and starting again. So click, click. So basically my bloody 0121 landline was slapped over like 75,000 flyers and God knows how many posters and Mixmag adverts and whatever. Anyway, the gig's coming up and I'm surprised the phone didn't bloody well blow up, you know, and Dan Prince and Dan, oh, you know, how are we going to do that? I said, look, lads, I'm telling you now, if it's anything like my landline, you know, we're in for a roadblock. And we didn't think anything of it. And bloody hell, Dex. the day of the gig came, remember it's a midday start, right? Gone to the club and I could see some of the pubs and stuff like that. I could see red and yellow and very glamorous outfits and, also it was really hedonistic. We did have that manumission feel, that type of, real big, the venue, everything about it was great.
Everyone was safe there, though. They felt comfortable and safe. That was the thing about Sundissential.
Yeah, I mean, I'll come on to the half-naked girls in a moment, but yeah, and it was, people could wear what they wanted. We didn't really have a dress code. Basically,
it wasn't one.
It wasn't. We never, we weren't appealing to anyone. Just be yourselves. Express yourself. So if you wanted to turn up, bollock naked wearing a tennis racket, then you crack on. There was just, maybe be careful when you're out in the streets, but, and we did, we had girls in fake body paint and very, I'll leave that to your imagination. Lads looking incredible, gay, straight, black, brown, white, yellow, it didn't matter. I remember there was one guy, I think he was from Manchester, I think, and he would walk around with a toilet with it, and in the toilet, he'd come up I think he had like chocolate milkshake in it. So I'll leave that to your imagination. Then the next time I saw him, it was limeade, and he'd just walk around showing people the contents of his toilet, and, but
so let's rewind to, I rudely interrupted. What happened with the event? The event?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
So,
that was my fault, by the way.
I'm glad you did it, Dexter, because I was going off in another direction.
Yeah.
Gone into the club and we had great decor, and red, yellow, quite striking. The club's the way that the handyman, he was a great guy. I can't remember his name, but he would tailor make little bits, and it just looked immaculate. The sound system was unlimited. It was pure. With strategic podiums on the dance floor to raise crowd level, and really create an atmosphere. There were 2 dance gantries at the top end. We didn't have dancers. We had 2,000 dancers. We didn't need to employ,
you didn't need them.
Nothing against club dancers. We had our own, and the harder sound, was a bit more of a wiggle that they call. I think I found out at the end, and this is me, and I was the promoter. They called the hard house dance the spoogie.
The spoogie. I've never heard that.
No, nor did I. I mean, I'd only been doing it since 1996. But Dexter, people started showing up. Remember, there's no tickets, it's pay on the door, and I'm telling everyone, yeah, no problem, you'll get in, pay on the door. Right, well, how wrong was I? 5,000 people turned up, Dexter.
I'm just trying to figure that.
For a club with a legal capacity of 1,900, which was still phenomenal. So chuck your guest list in there and you're looking at 2,000 people. My sister would come and, some of Danny's mates from Chesterfield up in North Derbyshire would come and, it was just but the ridiculous thing, I was told not to go outside, me personally, because people are shouting mine and get ladders. I need, he's told me. So I managed to sneak out through a side door. There was a bar that went onto another street. So I would walk around and the fucking queue was already round there. And I've looked the other side and the queue's that way. So basically what had happened, the queue had started to appear at the door, went to the corner where there was an Indian restaurant called the Maharaja, turned right there, the queue went all the way up that road. It then turned right again and came down Bristol Street, which is a main A road in Birmingham, turned right again, come back down Smallbrook Queensway to where this bar was, where I was like looking left and right, and all I could see was people queuing. So basically this whole queue had snaked all the way around this, as they say in America, block, and the gig was phenomenal, but it was, I think on record, the biggest club crowd that had ever appeared in Birmingham, ever.
Yeah. some big numbers. That's some
The
huge.
police were unhappy because the club were delighted with the turnout, but not delighted with the poor 3,000 people that had to go home.
Oh, I bet you got a bit of a backlash on that.
Yeah,
as well,
we did,
yeah.
because when we did the next bank holiday and put tickets out, although it was still a good event, we did about 1,200. So the backlash was, well, fuck you, I ain't going to you again. Excuse the language again, Jan.
Yeah, no. I can understand it. Clubbers can be very precious about shit like that.
Yeah, pissed off 3,000 people, ruined their bank holiday Sunday, So we learnt a very harsh lesson that day. But again, Dexter, where there's madness, there's mirth. And again, it was another Cupid's arrow of the rise of the brand, because I think that, and then when the next bank holiday come, we'd had tickets out there. We sold out two tickets, and maybe you always left some for door pays. You never, not everyone had debit and credit cards in them days, Dexter. Online purchases didn't exist. It was your own ticket distribution through independent retail, and then Ticketmaster.
Yeah.
So they were great. Ticketmaster were great, and we were glad to get on board with them, which opened us up to more avenues for retail sales. So that became, but that's all it was. I mean, there was, the famous promoter herself and DJ Mistress Mo. She had ticket sellers in up by Birmingham University, and that opened, and that was a godsend. She would, and then slowly but surely. But another thing, which came a bit later, because of the growth of the business, and my dad was our accountant and a sharp businessman, and he spoke to his bank, proudly telling his bank manager of his sons and his son's friends' events, and the bank manager was, oh, okay, well, how can we help? And we were able, and I think probably one of the first UK clubs to get their own telephone ticketing system, which was then known as NatWest Streamline.
No way.
And that gave us a lot of control over sales, although we still had to put the independents out there and we still had to have Ticketmaster. But slowly we were able to take on our own sales, which meant we didn't have to wait for the event to be over to get all the funds back in, etc. We were able, from the moment a member made a call to buy tickets, that money went immediately into our bank.
So you could draw on it, which would take less risk off of the event.
Yeah, so we were able to pay production costs, DJ costs, more or less,
which are phenomenally
get them done and out the way up front, because that way then you won't got to scurry around looking for people's invoices and this, and
it's still a problem today, Madders. It's still a problem today for independents, having that money up front. I know there are some systems and some platforms out there who do release money early to trusted promoters, but you have to earn that trust from them. And also you have more control over your money, whereas in this time, money always used to go walkies through.
Yeah.
They used to through ticket sellers, through this, through that, through this, through that. And it was just very hard to track. And all sorts of, how many excuses did you hear about, this money's gone here and money's gone there, and I've lost the tickets. And
we had a couple in Manchester. I mean, they had a market stall, like a clothes cassette tapes as they were then, and they got quite pally with us. And as daft as I am and as daft as I look, Dexter, I still had a sharp eye and sharp ears, and people tended to, those who are after something, let's do the fingers again, those that were after something always gravitated to Danny, the other half of Sundissential, Danny Kirk, because people realise that they're not going to pull the wool over my eyes, But with Danny, people would go, in the end, when we started to fall out, I would go like this to, yes, Dan, get the checkbook out, Dan, because he became so taken in by all this, I'll do this for you, I can do this for you. But in the end, this market stall in Manchester, they canned us for $3,000. This is 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Dexter, $3,000 is $3,000. It's a lot of money. Anyway, I think, and no strong arm tactics. We didn't operate like that. We weren't the Cratons. We were just two happy-go-lucky lads who, and we dampened, just wanted to party, But I think they may have trimmed a bit of fat off it, but but we had to chase it, Dexter. So having this NatWest, and I'm advertising NatWest, although Streamline probably doesn't exist. It's 30 years. It'd be 30 years. Of course,
it won't.
Yeah. So by having, and then now obviously we started to see the very beginning of what is now virtually a cashless society. People had their debit cards, they had their credit cards. The checkbook was going out of fashion. Although we had the company checkbook, and and even to this very day, my mum still pays her bills by check. She's entitled to,
Yep.
But balmy. But we learned some lessons. But then obviously that the growth, and we definitely knew that we captured the bank holiday market because no one else could open. Legally they could not open, and it did piss off a lot of people because, well, how come you can open and we can't? Well, we know how to do it because we've got licensing solicitors. We've got like thousands of members. We are operating within old rank, and we had it banged to rights, and that gave us the inspiration then, and I know it will come to take because I always wanted, I knew that like the birthdays, the bank holidays, New Year's Eve, were always going to give us the weeklies though, Dexter, were hit and miss. Look, it's a Sunday, a lot of people, they would come for a few months and you wouldn't see them again because, it's impacting on their jobs. It's impacting on their relationships. It's impacting all over the place. We're asking people to do Friday and Saturday night things on a Sunday afternoon. It's going to take its toll, somewhere. And then obviously that led to a decision in 1999 to launch Sundissential on Saturdays, but we'll come to that. But for me, at the time, very close with Danny Kirk. He was my best friend at the time. We put a lot of effort into Sundissential, and but Danny came from Chesterfield, which is 10 miles out of Sheffield, and obviously was the northern lad who'd come down to Birmingham, and he wasn't very welcome when he first came down. He was very handsome, very good-looking guy, and a bit like Jason Orange to take that. So you would get a lot of female attention, and well, you look like Jason Orange, and but he was my best mate at the time, and my family loved him, and he was part of the my friends. Although one or two did, and I'll come to it about. What's his game, what's his angle. But you know what? Look, we all made him welcome in Birmingham. He moved down to Birmingham because he met a Birmingham girl who was part of my travelling crew at the time at Renaissance in Mansfield back in 1992. So come about 1994, 95 maybe, Danny had moved down. So, but I was always thinking, wouldn't it be nice to have a Sundissential in the north, because I wanted to give Danny something back. It was quite a big thing for me. But we we discussed it. And no disrespect to the Spire town of Chesterfield, it's a satellite town of Sheffield. It's not exactly Clubland territory.
Secret. I used to live in a little village just outside called
Really?
Holmwood. Yeah.
Oh, never.
Only for a few months. It's about 6
Yeah.
months. So I know Chesterfield. And
Yeah,
yes,
well-
I know what you're going to say. It wasn't really, it's not really set up for
No,
a Sundissential,
it's not a bastion.
Yeah.
Not a bastion. But the other side of the coin, though, Dexter, we knew we couldn't open in Sheffield because no way that, Gatecrasher, you're landing on Gatecrasher's doorstep. And regardless of the fact you want to do a Sunday, when you mention clubbing in Sheffield, Gatecrasher, so we knew that, and we didn't want to do Manchester because didn't really have that scene, we're playing hard music. We're still appealing to a cross-cultural crowd. And we were also concerned as well a little bit, and I'm just being honest, Manchester, was notorious for its underbelly, and we didn't want to get involved with these people, you know. So I sat at home one day. I was at my mum and dad's, and my dad used to have the Sunday Mail or something, and you get the supplement, and I just picked it up, and there was an article in there, and it was couple of pages, maybe even 3, and it was basically this new licensing practice that were going to adopt in the city of Leeds.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
I remember.
And so I read it, and I rang Danny. I said, "Listen, Danny," I said, "I've got a magazine article here which I'll bring to you. I want you to read it, but I think I said I've just found our northern home."
What a scene it had.
Yeah.
Leeds. Yeah.
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 So-
I loved partying in Leeds.
Yeah. And so I said, "Well, look, we can't do Sheffield." I said, "But if we go another 30 miles up the M1, we do Leeds." And he absolutely loved it. He basically said, "Come on, let's go," and we did. And we asked Rank, "Have you got a club in Leeds?" And of course they had. So on a Friday night, we went to see the Pulse nightclub in Leeds, which was in the city centre, but it was in a mini arcade style shopping area, not like a mall, the old fashioned shopping arcade. You don't get them much now.
Yeah.
And it was there, and the club was great. But what put us off was the fact it was in this arcade.
Yeah.
And if you're going to operate on a Sunday, you've got Mabel from Wakefield just about to go and buy £2 of stewing steak opposite this nightclub where there's people like, half naked,
Yeah.
gurning the Goonies off, and you just felt it's going to cause some unnecessary publicity here.
Your gut scream no.
Gut.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. I've had that feeling.
And then me and Danny, we sort of like decided to have a little gander around Leeds, and you know what I mean by that. We got on it, and then we ended up in an after hours club in Sheffield on the way over. It's absolutely hilarious. And got back to Birmingham, God knows when, Sunday morning, I think, we went on the Friday night, bloody hell. And, but then a couple of weeks later, we sort of, okay, well, maybe. And we didn't want to land on the doorstep where there were established nights anyway. It's unfair to them. It's just not fair. When local Leeds-based brands or, wherever, you don't just go and ring the, say, look, I know you have this event on the Saturday, but we don't operate like that. There's unwritten rules. But anyway,
they've long gone now.
They've got long gone now.
Fucking hell, yeah.
Yeah. But I remember where I parked and it was down by, we'd gone past that arcade, gone down to the corner, and I noticed on the corner a nightclub, but I didn't think anything of it. parked around on the left-hand side by a bloody snooker club. I mean, and my memory is sharp on some things, yet some days I can't remember my own frigging name, you know. So I've looked in the window of this nightclub because it had a window and it was called Club Europa, but it just looked tiny, you know. So I had a look from the outside, went up to rank, got on it in Leeds and Sheffield Cup for a couple of days and landed back in Birmingham of a Sunday, ready to do our own gig. A couple of weeks after doing that, I had a phone call from a guy called John Williams, and I don't know where he got my number from. Someone somewhere would, and in them days, of course, you know, you passed everyone's numbers out as though they're going out of fashion. Of course, these days you have to have consent.
Of course.
So anyway, this guy said, the manager of Club Europa, you know, and I've heard that you're looking for a home in Leeds, and he said, I think I can fit the bill, and I said, that rings a bell. Are you on a corner by a snooker club, you know? And he said, yeah, we are. And I said, well, I had a look through your window. It looks quite small. He said, you know, that's your first impression. I suggest you come along. And me and Danny were more than keen to do that because we were looking to do this event in Leeds, and we thought we had nothing to lose, so off we went, and we've gone in there, and well, you know, I mean, it needed a fortune spending on it, but you know, the framework of a front DJ facing club, open plan, although it was 2 tiers. Was it 2 or 3? No, 2 tiers. Dance floor downstairs, dance floor on the next level, but all facing the one DJ. And again, a couple of podiums. So it looked like, Dexter, it looked like a mini Pulse in Birmingham. We thought, well, we can make this work. So we went to see, with John, to see the police in Leeds, because again, although they were opening up these licenses, they still wanted to know who you were. They wanted to know what your plans were, how you were going to police this, how you were going to manage it, blah, blah, blah. So we went out for lunch with the head of licensing for West Yorkshire Police, and he was absolutely amazing. He was more interested in talking about rugby league than he was about...
one of them.
It was amazing.
Oh, brilliant.
Can't remember his name, but he was amazing. And I remember, and you know, and obviously Danny coming from, you know, just south of Yorkshire, you know, where are you from? Where are you from, our lad? And, you know, so there's that northern flow going, and John, you know, and I remember him saying, he said, look, lads, you know, I'll carry on. He's gone, as long as you don't bring me any trouble, he's gone, you can do what the fuck you want. You know, it's like, wow. So we launched Sundissential North in March 1998, and again, locked out, you know, and it was. But we had teething troubles. We couldn't get the ballot, you know, we ended up with like Sasha and Oakenfold in there to a few hundred people. I mean, how the hell we survived financially? But again, by a stroke of luck, we did the, I'd met these guys, Dougie Gray, his name was, a real Leeds character. You know, we started to get to know, and they're lovely people in Leeds.
Agreed.
You know, the team working for me and Danny, they were all a
good bunch
from
up
Leeds,
there.
West Yorkshire. Chris, who used to do our promotion, he was a Scouser, but he was, him and his partner were, you know, living and working and studying in Leeds. So, so we had the in Leeds intel, you know, and so I started to go to the Glass House, and it was absolutely phenomenal. It was a proper afters club. The location was great. The people, they're mad as March airs, real different. You know, the northern way of doing things back then was, you know, no surrender. You know, full on. And I said to, you know, Dougie, I said, and I'll be honest with you, Dexter, it was the last throw of the dice really, because although we launched in the March, just couldn't get it going. And we'd had a couple of failures in June and July, and
losing money.
I thought we would, hand over fist as well at the point.
Yeah.
So I said to Danny and I said, look, you know, and Dan Prince, I said, look, guys, we had Rob Chisera, legend and
Yes.
Savage legend as our resident,
Yes.
plus our resident and Tony DeVian. So we just
Blimey.
went with like a combo, maybe a tall Paul in there. But this time we did part 1 at Europa, is either 12 midday to 12 midnight. Yeah, it was 12 till 12. And then a part 2, Sundissential North meets the Glass House from 12 till 6. I swear to you not, Dexter, that whole event locked out within 1 hour.
Wow.
I had to phone the lads up and say it was 1 o'clock. Everything all right up there, Madders? Yeah, everything's great. The doors are locked. We're full. Game on. Do you know what I mean? And it was absolutely mind-blowing. It was mind-blowing. We had Sundissential North up and running in the way that we wanted it. And
Was it was it going to be weekly?
No, monthly.
Monthly.
No.
Right. Okay. I'm just trying to get my head around that.
Yeah, it stayed like that for a while, but so even on the non-bank holidays, because it was once a month, we'd sell out. And the club had a local reputation of being a shithole. You know, when I used to say to people, say, "Oh, I've heard about this. Where'd you hold it then?" Club Europa. Club Europa.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, shithole. I said, it might be, but you need to be a member to come in. I don't care, mate. It's a shithole. But we broke that fabric down, and yeah, all right, it needed a good refurb, but do you know what?
It didn't really matter back then, did it? Though, like, with that sort of sound, with that sort of music, with that sort of mix. I remember some of the venues we went to were just underground basements with they were shitholes. Literally shitholes, but the best shitholes I've ever been to, they're unisex fucking toilets. Yeah. You know, the toilets were flooded. The locks were all broken. The filth that would you would come home with from it being in a club. You know, like underneath the railway arches in Vauxhall. Yeah. When those original clubs opened, the British Rail would have rented. And then obviously when they privatised, they took them all back. Yeah. Which a lot of the clubs then failed because of that. But they were shitholes. But we used to come out and filthy from them, you know. So I think that's probably, but that was a part of the sound as well. No one cared. No one cared what it looked like. But they would do nowadays. Yeah, exactly. So,
but where we found a new lease of life on Sundissential's famous Madness. I mean, we had like camels turn up, and I don't mean real ones.
Yeah, I've seen photos.
But people would come like nose to bum in a camel suit, you know. And like, I'm thinking, you're going to have your head up your mate's ass for the next 10 hours. Fucking fair play to you. But it was absolutely insane, and that same creative thinking of the members. They could be themselves. They were. We used to have one chap. He was from Manchester. We you know, I'm not. I didn't mean to, you know, be sort of sound anti-Mancunian.
No.
You know, we
great
had loads come out of Lancashire. Loads from Manchester and Lancashire, the mill towns, Burnley, and you know, and all sorts of places. But this one lad, I mean, it looked really weird. He had a bangle, you know, like a wrist bangle, and he would put it in his lip line, so his mouth would open because he had the bangle in the lip line, and it was like, whoa, you know, and he'd stay like it all day. You know, we had him on a flyer once, and we had the world gurning champions come down from Cumbria, and fucking hell, it was off the scale.
It was
the world gurning.
It was creative thinking, though, wasn't it? Because back then, not a lot was taboo. Then, you know, and it was just. But I think it was starting to break boundaries down. And you're right. A lot of the clubs that I went to in that era, it was gay, straight. It was a whole mix, you know. And in trade was similar, even though it was gay, but a lot of straight went there as well. But I mean, the original clubs that we went to, just didn't fucking matter. And it was the
No.
same when you went to Ibiza in those days.
Yeah,
Very mixed.
yeah.
So, but my God, what an atmosphere
Yeah.
it produced,
Yeah.
you know?
And you know what, from that period at Europa, from August of 1998 up until the deaths in Leeds in 2000. So again, you know, we did a lot of gigs up there, but of course it's in a short period of time when you think about it, you know. But then, you know, again, we got lucky because Nick Rafferty, the one resident of Sundissential and Sundissential North, Nick used to play regularly at both events, you know, and he'd been doing some DJing at a club called Evolution, which was not in the city centre. But Nick, I remember him saying to me, he said, "Look, you really want to see it?" He said, "It looks like the Pulse. It's on a private, not private. It's on one of those leisure estates where you've got Frankie and Benny's.
Yeah,
You've
those
got,
industrial
like,
estate type things.
yeah.
Toys R Us and stuff
yeah.
like yeah. Halfords and
Yeah. And it was on the way to Headingley, and we thought, and I'm thinking, well, bloody hell. I mean, obviously, it's like the student population's there, so I could see some advantage, but I just didn't like the idea of it being out of the city centre, really, if that makes sense, and nor did Danny. And so, and then the one day Nick said, "Look, you know, come on, let's go. I'll take you up there." I can't remember if I went with him or I met him. I can't remember. But anyway, I ended up in this Club Evolution. Danny didn't come with me. I just went on my own up. You know, he knew I was going. You know, he said, "Yeah, go, you know, crack on. Let's have a look." You know, he was doing something else. And I rang him. I said, "Dan, fucking hell, this place is something special, mate." I said, "Well, have it off here." And that had a capacity of nearly 3,000 people.
Yeah. So, and your current club had how many?
Well, 2,500, I think it was, but we ended up taking the bar over next door and creating another brand called Sundissential, which became a brand on its own.
Wow.
You know,
and
because obviously,
what were you presently at Europa? How much?
1,300, 1,350 at a push.
So you were doubling your income overnight.
Yeah,
and probably you wouldn't even have to inject that much more costs.
No, but in the July of 2000, we'd had the last death. Do you remember the old original? Well, I think they only did it once. The Love Parade.
Yeah. I remember it.
Leeds.
Yes, yeah.
Well, we had two events on. We had Sundissential North meets Insomniacs at Club Europa locked out. And then Fergie, bless him, was going to do, it was either 3 or 4 hour set, and we called it Fergie Essential. So we created a theme night around, you know, the young Irish superstar, you know, locked out. But unfortunately, mate, you know, we'd had number 4 and, you know, and we were doomed. And, you know, Birmingham and Leeds, we were just fucking doomed. You know, we were labelled the club of death. The deaths in Birmingham, the first death, Dexter, back in the January of 2000, we were front page headlines of the Birmingham Evening Mail, the Wolverhampton Express and Star, every other goddamn newspaper, television and radio programme on the BBC and Independent. We were front page headlines every day.
When were the good news? When were the years that you really thrived before the deaths? 1990.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think brand thrive from, you know, from when we started. Really, you know, we created something unique. So we had the growth, but we also had a hell of a lot of financial outlay and some very big risks. So financially, we probably weren't where we'd like to have been. But, you know, obviously we're a business; we need to turn in a profit. But you know, it wasn't all about, you know, we would spend. Well, a lot of outlay, you know, overheads, DJs, agencies, office staff, you know, it's like any other business, you know. But, yeah, so anyway, we'd signed up for this Club Evolution, and we said we would launch at the end of September 2000. And again, out went the marketing and, you know, decent lineup. But we thought we'd just try the one room and in fairness, 600 people turned up and we put a good show on. And there's me on the mic and welcome to our new home, and let's make this place to call home now. And bugging me backwards with a blue black pudding, Dexter, the following month in the October, at the end of October, fucking hell, over 1,500, maybe 1,800 people turned up for one room. So we got the same setup again, front facing, DJ box, dance podiums, great furnishing, great sound system. Although I think we did, I remember Danny used to like to, it wasn't as powerful as we wanted it. We'd bring in a few bits of kit and then it became so big we had to take over the second room, which was a circular dance floor. It was quite funny looking, but the DJ box was in the middle of the circle.
Cool.
Looked like a fucking polo mint on stilts, and then we'd put like, we had a mate of ours up there who was loyal, and worked for the brand Sundissential North, Millsy, legend, absolute raving nutcase he was, and probably still is, bless him, and him and his pals had a local Leeds night called Housewife's Choice, and we put them in there. So we had Sundissential North in the main room, Housewife's Choice in the second room. Now we're over 2,000 people. The 2,500 people. Good Grief used to go in there. A young up-and-coming Eddie Halliwell used to DJ in there. So now we were at more than battle strength. We doubled the figures, the viewing figures, to the point where, and then, like I say, I always had an ear, me, to what was happening, even though, I'm battling my demons,
Because you're still doing this. That was getting, obviously,
compounding
in the background.
Yeah, I had a cocaine problem when we launched Sundissential. I just managed to keep it hidden,
You were a functioning drug addict.
Basically. Yeah, because I had this,
so I was a functioning alcoholic for many years. And I look back at it now and I went, how the fuck do I manage that?
Yeah, me too, mate. Yeah, me too. But it was causing trouble, I've been stealing money, and that's another story. I mean, Dexter, I don't know if you're doing a 2-part podcast, you might as well start it now. We'll fucking finish it in October.
I tell you what we'll do is, this has been like the good side of, and we've been quite a while now. So we could do a good and a bad, because I think the next question would be probably when did it all start falling apart?